Hello, everyone, and welcome back. You're listening to Daily C1 English Vocabulary. My name is Emma.
And my name is Tom. Today we're exploring 12 powerful words and expressions that will make your English more natural, precise, and expressive. Let's dive right in.
We start with a noun that describes active physical or mental strength and energy. Vigor.
For example, she approached every challenge with remarkable vigor, never letting setbacks slow her down. Or, the new CEO brought a fresh vigor to the company that employees hadn't felt in years. Vigor implies active intensity. It's not just having energy while sitting on a sofa. It's the power you apply to a specific task.
You'll often hear vigor in the context of work, leadership, or physical effort. Any situation where someone is acting with real energy and determination, and you'll frequently see it in its adjective and adverb forms. A vigorous debate, a vigorous campaign, or he vigorously defended his position in front of the board.
Vigor is moderately formal. It's a more formal and expressive alternative to energy, one you'll often come across in articles and speeches.
To maintain that vigor, especially when the initial excitement fades, you often need willpower. Willpower is the ability to control your own actions, emotions, and impulses, especially when it's difficult. It's that internal force that keeps you going when you want to stop.
For example, quitting smoking required enormous willpower. He had to resist the urge dozens of times a day. Or, she had the willpower to stick to her training schedule for months, even when she didn't feel like it.
Willpower is a neutral, everyday word, comfortable in casual conversation and formal writing alike. You'll hear it paired with verbs like require, take, test, or need. It takes real willpower to keep going when results are slow to come.
Compared to self-control, willpower is slightly more active and energetic. Self-control is about resisting, while willpower suggests actively pushing yourself forward. Compared to discipline, willpower tends to be more spontaneous and personal, while discipline implies a system or structure you've built over time.
Sometimes, though, all the willpower in the world isn't enough when a situation is fundamentally broken, and that's when someone needs to shake things up. Shake up is a phrasal verb meaning to make major changes to something in order to improve it, often by disrupting the existing order. It carries a sense of deliberate disruption, the idea that the old way simply isn't working.
For example, the new director decided to shake up the department by restructuring the entire team. Or, the startup really shook up the industry by offering the service for free when everyone else was charging for it.
Shake up is informal to neutral. You'll hear it in business media, casual conversation, and motivational contexts. As a noun, a shake-up is also very common. The company announced a major shake-up at the executive level.
Compared to reform or restructure, shake-up is more energetic and colloquial. It implies something more sudden and disruptive rather than a slow, planned process.
When a system is shaken up, it's the perfect time to stand out. Stand out means to be noticeably different from the people or things around you. In a good way. When someone stands out, you notice them. You remember them.
For example, her portfolio stood out from hundreds of applicants because of its unusual visual style. Or, what makes this restaurant stand out is that every dish uses locally sourced ingredients.
It's a neutral, everyday phrase. You'll hear it everywhere, from job interviews to casual conversation.
You can use it in two ways: stand out from a crowd or stand out for a specific quality, like creativity or attention to detail.
To stand out, though, you often need to ramp up your efforts first. Ramp up is a phrasal verb meaning to increase something significantly and rapidly. Your output, speed, production, effort, or intensity. Think of a ramp, something that takes you from a lower level up to a higher one.
For example, the factory had to ramp up production to meet the surge in demand before the holidays. Or, as the deadline approached, the team ramped up their efforts, working late every night.
Ramp up is slightly informal, frequently used in business and tech. It works well with nouns like production, pressure, spending, or efforts. The government has been ramping up spending on infrastructure.
Compared to increase, ramp up implies something faster and more dramatic. You don't just increase, you accelerate. Compared to scale up, ramp up often focuses more on speed and urgency, while scale up is more about building systems that can handle greater size.
If you ramp up your efforts and succeed at something very difficult or unexpected, you pull it off. Pull off is a phrasal verb meaning to succeed at something difficult or surprising, often something that seemed unlikely or required great skill. It's the moment when the underdog wins, when the ambitious plan actually works.
For example, against all odds, they pulled off a complete rebrand in under 3 months. Or, I can't believe she pulled off a flawless performance after only 2 weeks of preparation.
Pull off is informal and conversational. It has a slightly admiring, even disbelieving tone built into it. That's what makes it different from simply achieve or accomplish. Those words are neutral, while pull off implies everyone is a little surprised, including you.
Compared to manage to do, pull off is more vivid and expressive. Compared to succeed, pull off always implies the task was difficult or risky. You don't pull off something easy. If a child successfully puts on their shoes for the first time, you'd say they managed it. But if a tiny startup outcompetes a global corporation, they pulled it off.
But life isn't always about pulling off miracles. Often, we find ourselves in the gray zone of routine, and that brings us to a pair of very useful adjectives: humdrum and mundane. Humdrum is an adjective meaning dull, monotonous, and lacking any excitement or variety. It's that feeling of gray, forgettable sameness.
For example, after years of humdrum office work, she decided to quit and travel the world. Or, he found the daily commute particularly humdrum, the same train, the same seat, the same faces.
Humdrum is informal, more colorful than simply saying boring or repetitive. It doesn't just describe dullness, it captures the feeling of being worn down by it. You can call a single film or meeting boring, but humdrum is always about the bigger picture: a humdrum life, a humdrum routine. It's about days that all look the same.
Tedious is similar, but focuses more on length. Something tedious drags on and wears you out. A tedious process, a tedious explanation, a tedious journey. Humdrum is about sameness, not duration.
Now, mundane, similar to humdrum, but with a cooler, more neutral tone. Mundane means ordinary, practical, and unexciting, relating to the normal, everyday world, rather than anything special, spiritual, or interesting. It comes from the Latin mundus, meaning world, and originally simply meant of this world, as opposed to the divine.
For example, the CEO still handles many mundane tasks himself, like answering emails and scheduling meetings. Or, between the exciting milestones, entrepreneurship involves a lot of mundane, repetitive work.
Mundane is neutral to formal. You'll find it in writing, professional discussions, and thoughtful conversation. It's useful because it doesn't sound critical the way boring does. It's more matter of fact. These things are simply part of ordinary life.
The key difference from humdrum is tone. Humdrum expresses mild frustration or weariness with monotony. Mundane is more neutral. It simply acknowledges that something belongs to the everyday world. You might call balancing your budget mundane without any complaint. It's just an ordinary task. But if you called it humdrum, you'd be hinting that you find it particularly tedious.
And while some work is just ordinary, other tasks are exhausting, relentless, and hard to get through. That's grueling. Grueling is an adjective meaning extremely demanding and exhausting, to the point where it pushes you to your physical or mental limits. If mundane work wears you down with boredom, grueling work wears you down with sheer difficulty.
For example, the training program was grueling, 12-hour days of physical exercise with barely any rest. Or, after a grueling 14-hour shift, all she wanted to do was sleep.
Grueling is neutral in formality, works equally well in casual speech and formal writing. It's most often used for physical challenges, long work days, athletic training, difficult journeys, but also applies to mentally demanding situations, a grueling negotiation, a grueling exam.
Compared to exhausting, grueling implies not just tiredness, but also ongoing, relentless difficulty. It's not just that you're tired, it's that the work keeps demanding more from you. Compared to demanding, grueling is far more intense. Demanding simply means something requires effort, while grueling means it's pushing you to your absolute limits.
And when grueling work finally pays off, the results can be staggering. Staggering is an adjective meaning so large, surprising, or shocking that it's almost hard to believe or comprehend. It comes from the verb to stagger, to walk unsteadily, and the idea is that the information is so overwhelming it could knock you off your feet.
For example, the cost of the renovation turned out to be staggering, nearly 3 times the original estimate. Or, the team's comeback was staggering. They were losing by 20 points with 10 minutes to play.
Staggering is informal to neutral and works in both spoken and written English. You'll often pair it with words like amount, number, difference, achievement, or cost. The staggering number of applications meant the process would take months.
Compared to incredible or unbelievable, staggering is more precise. It specifically emphasizes scale and the difficulty of processing something mentally, rather than just expressing general disbelief. Compared to enormous or massive, staggering adds an emotional layer. It's not just big, it's big in a way that shocks you.
When the humdrum and the mundane take over your life, you might feel like you're stuck in a rut. Stuck in a rut is an idiom meaning to be in a fixed, boring routine that's hard to change, doing the same things day after day without progress or excitement. A rut is a deep groove worn into the ground by a wheel. Once you're in it, it's hard to steer out.
For example, after 5 years in the same role, she felt completely stuck in a rut and started looking for new opportunities. Or, if you eat the same things, go to the same places, and talk to the same people every week, you might be stuck in a rut.
This expression is informal and very natural in everyday speech. It describes not just boredom, but a kind of trapped feeling, the sense that you know your routine is limiting you, but you can't quite break free from it.
Compared to in a routine, stuck in a rut is much more negative. A routine can be positive and productive, while a rut implies stagnation and loss of direction. Compared to burned out, stuck in a rut focuses on monotony rather than exhaustion. You're not worn out, you're just going around in the same circles.
And the best way out of a rut is to break the mold. Break the mold is an idiom meaning to do something in an entirely new and original way, rejecting established conventions and expectations. A mold is a shape that forces everything made from it to look the same. Break it, and you escape that sameness.
For example, her debut novel broke the mold of traditional fantasy fiction by blending it with political satire. Or, the company broke the mold by offering unlimited vacation to all employees, at a time when no one in the industry was even considering it.
Break the mold is neutral to slightly informal, equally at home in casual conversation and journalistic writing. It carries an admiring, even celebratory tone. Unlike simply being different, breaking the mold implies that the person has done something bold, intentional, and successful.
Compared to think outside the box, break the mold is more action-oriented. Thinking outside the box is about mental approach, while breaking the mold is about what you actually do and produce. Compared to be unconventional or be original, break the mold is more vivid and emphatic. It suggests not just being different, but actively challenging and overturning an established pattern.
And that's it for today. 12 words and expressions that give you a rich, nuanced vocabulary for talking about energy, effort, and the desire to do something remarkable. From the raw strength of vigor and the inner force of willpower, to the bold decision to shake up the status quo and stand out from the crowd. From the urgency of ramping up and the satisfaction of pulling off something unlikely, to the quiet weight of humdrum routine and the neutral resignation of mundane tasks. From the exhaustion of grueling work and the disbelief at staggering results, to the trapped feeling of being stuck in a rut, and ultimately, the courage it takes to break the mold.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, take care and keep learning.
And see you in the next episode.